Hanover, summer, 1952. Christian leaders from 5 continents, 26 countries, 52 separate and autonomous churches, representing more than 50 million members, coming together in the great Second Assembly of the Lutheran World Federation. Seeking in common confession of faith in the Prince of Peace, a practical answer to the problems of a world slowly rebuilding out of the wreckage of war. One answer with which Hanover began its deliberations was prayer. Another answer, action in the loving service of man on the ground of common faith. And as the sessions got underway in Hanover's Convention Hall, it was Bishop Hans Lilje, internationally known and beloved leader of the host church, who voiced the challenge that faced the Lutheran World Federation for the forthcoming years, saying,
"If during those days it could be given to us that Lutheran preachers and members of our Lutheran congregations throughout the world would receive new consolation by the magnificent work of salvation of our Lord, and if each one of us in his place, in the middle of a materialistic world or under the pressure of persecution, could become a messenger of this certainty, what streams of blessing could go forth from this assembly."
And as the conference went on, it was an American representative who defined the challenge and gave it anew to the delegates assembled. Reporting on the works of the past on a worldwide scale, Dr. Paul Empey phrased the task of the future.
From the standpoint of scriptures, there can be no doubt about the responsibility of the Christian to serve his fellow men. To speak of a non-serving Christian is like talking about a round square. It is a contradiction of terms. Therefore, the point at issue is not if or who, but rather how. That is an urgent problem faced by the Assembly of the Lutheran World Federation at this particular session.
This was the theme of Hanover, 1952. The living Word in a responsible church. Does the Word live? Is the Christian church responsive to a world of bodily and spiritual need? Is it all merely meetings and wall maps, or do we meet the challenge? Can that blessing stream forth for us? Let us see. Let us look at a land whence that living Word first came. Out of the darkness of time into the light. The river is Jordan. The land is Palestine. Land of the flowing Jordan, land of the timeless hills. Still studded by the watchtowers of the Crusaders. Palestine, to the outward eye, still in places, much as it was 2,000 years ago, when the Prince of Peace was born not far from here. People still come down to the Sea of Galilee. This is a land of an ancient people with odd customs, costumes, and countenances. To us, they are strangers. But what is more familiar to the Christian than the timeless cities to which the roads still lead? The Holy Land cities still enclose the old ruins of time, going back to the days of Greek and Roman. Other cities are scarred with the newer ruins of war. For only yesterday it broke out, and even today the Holy Land lies under an uneasy truce with the threat of more violence hanging over old Jerusalem like a cloud. As you see her today from the Mount of Olives, Jerusalem tells with her gates and her very paving stones the story of the Word, which became flesh and walked these very streets. Along this way he walked, the man of sorrows. Along these streets he carried his cross for us. Along this street of sorrows unfolded the story of suffering for the sin and evil in the heart of man. And here again, 2,000 years later, the drama of humankind in conflict continues at the old crossroads. For here is where East meets West, where the slave world presses upon the free. Muslim meets Christian, and for the Jew, an old nation is born anew. And here, where the living Word first appeared, is symbolized the challenge to the responsible church. This is the Gethsemane of old. There is, not far from the rustle of these ancient olives, a new agony of human suffering being acted out by unwilling victims. How far from the quiet counsels of Hanover has Christian love responded to their need? For the answer, you do not have far to go. There are still people living in ruins, held in the grip of poverty, caught in the aftermath of war. Arabs, bereft of land and home and possessions, dwell in tent cities by thousands and thousands. Refugees, always refugees, 800,000 of them, walking the long road that leads to nowhere, lifting their eyes to the hills and finding only rocks. What are they like, these dwellers in tents among the cruel stones? They are people, families, fathers, mothers, babies, children. Children, always children. Strangers to us, true. But look, instead of a crown of thorns, barbed wire. Some of them are Christians, most are not. But love makes no distinctions. This challenge of suffering is ours to answer. Yes, the need of the children is compelling, and not the least of our answer to their need is schooling. These are reasonably well off, little as they have in worldly goods. Much better off, in fact, than others. Here in the land where the blind were once made by miracle to see, the light of learning is being let in on young lives otherwise condemned to darkness. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Older hands are taught to work in one of our more formal schools. But the hunger of their bodies must be answered too. In the tent cities, among these people who live on the narrow edge of starvation, even this is a rare treat. Your love substitutes this. These people must be fed, and little as it is, fed they are. Lutheran World Action is an instrument of United Nations relief throughout the Holy Land. And UN aid is supplemented, of course, by the outpouring of our own churches when it is time for the daily bread. It is the social illness of war that has made these children suffer. But we reach out the hand of Christian love also to those whose sickness is that of the body itself. Here in one of the hospitals we operate in the Holy Land, that need of the body is answered. Many are those who gather at our polyclinic. Even the smallest receives his measure of loving care. On the Mount of Olives itself, Lutheran World Action, cooperating with the United Nations, maintains another oasis of healing in the land too full of need. Here, where the Lutheran World Federation holds in trust former German institutions of mercy, your gifts of love are transformed into service to man. The Lutheran World Federation's familiar representative, the beloved and jaunty Edmund Mall, has earned the complete trust of people of differing faiths. They have come to know the Lutheran Federation flag as a symbol of faith in action. For just as important as material relief or technical assistance is the personal touch of Christian people bearing their witness among strangers. In Victoria Hospital, that challenge of service to man in the name of the great physician is firmly met. Trained and skilled technicians who are also persons of Christian commitment carry on their ministry of healing. It isn't just the highest skills that are the significant ones. Even the humblest tasks have their place in the pattern too. And when, with your own hands, you pack and send offerings of garments, the long arm of Lutheran World Federation helps you to clothe the backs of the naked. So the children are being taught, the hungry fed, the sick ministered to, and the naked clothed. But what about the word which says, "Feed my sheep"? Well, here in this land of many churches, the Nativity, Calvary, Holy Sepulchre, the Redeemer. What is more fitting than that the arm of Lutheran World Action should reach out and literally rebuild? This too is part of our task in the Holy Land, repairing and preserving the temples of the Word. But our concern is not merely with the physical church. We also build within that innermost chamber where the living Word brings forth its true fruit, the human heart.
الليل وتقارب النهار لنسهر ونصفو ونطرح عنا البطالة لنحاضر بالصبر في الجهاد الموضوع أمامنا. يا رب افتح شفتي
فيخبر فمي بتسبيحك.
اذكرني يا رب برضاك.
تعهدني بخلاصك.
المجد للآب والابن والروح.
Thus we obey our Lord's command, and thus his sheep, unto the smallest lambs, are nourished with faith in the living word. Thus the challenge of Hanover is met in far-off Palestine by a responsible church. For when in Germany last summer, Lutheran Christians from the world over met in their common confession and consecrated themselves anew to service, it was not merely with the words of their mouths that they said,
Ich glaube an Gott den Vater.
I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. No, Hanover was not just another meeting with banners and speeches, conferences, and colorful panoply. It was a reaffirmation of our God-guided unity of Christian witness around the globe. A rededication of ourselves to our pledges of Christian service. For this is the true challenge of Hanover. Wherever this need exists, a responsible church must meet it with the living word. For the living word, you know, is Christ himself, and Christ is love. Love for the very least of these, wherever they may be. This challenge we gladly accept, in faith that with our Lord's help, we can bring his healing in even larger measure to a suffering, war-sick world.